Right down.
I guess we'll go. All right, well, hey, we'll go ahead and get started. First off, I'm Brett Lennon-Cole, for those that don't know me. We run Impact Baseball Academy, so I see a lot of familiar faces. Seeing you guys around, we'll be seeing you more this spring. Just to start off, going over kind of the stuff that's right in front of you there, we've got the itinerary. We're going to keep it kind of informal today. I think the best way to do it with a small group like this, Eric's going to talk through some mechanics. We've got a few discussion starter questions towards the end. But really, I think the goal of this will kind of be to give you guys as much of an opportunity to ask questions, clarify drills, clarify mechanics, things you guys have heard. Because Eric's been through pretty much every level, every system. He's had a lot of good coaches. So I think we'll kind of gear it that way and keep it a small group discussion, informal as best we can. So on your desk right in there, you'll see just a little flyer as well. So if you don't know anything about Impact, that's kind of what we do, kind of in a nutshell. So feel free to take that. Also, there's a little coupon there. I know you guys are all coaches. If you have kids or kids on your team, if they're interested in instruction or camps or clinics throughout the year, that's a coupon you can take. We've got more of them, so if you've got a whole team of kids that wants to start working out, whatever it may be, we've got more of those for you. So feel free to shoot us an email and we can get those to you. All right, so here's what we'll do. I figured we started off like this, kind of with some action. So, Coach Rolfink, if you don't mind, go ahead, and if you haven't seen this video, this is just a quick highlight video, a fan made of Eric, and then we'll go ahead with introductions.
When I make it out to Hollywood, I'll be such a star. The world will hallow me. When I make it big in Los Angeles, I ain't gonna stop. I'll never let it be. Driving out in California, I'll be getting off while you get off on me. And your mother's lips will glisten at the mention of my name. Oh, 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 come on, feed on my disease. I'm not just another tease. Oh, can you feel it coming? Come on, feed on my disease. I'm not just another tease. Oh, can you feel it, feel it? When you're all alone, you see me on the telly. Your hand will slowly disappear. I'll be just like you remember, only something more like God. Oh, 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 come on, feed on my disease. I'm not just another tease. Oh, can you feel it coming? Come on, feed on my disease. I'm not just another tease. Oh, can you feel it, feel it?
All right, so again, just kind of to introduce him. So Eric's a good buddy of mine. We played together at Wake Forest University, where some of you guys are from. Eric was drafted in 2007, 99th pick overall in the MLB draft. Spent 4 or 5 years with the Mets. 2009, he was selected as a minor league all-star, led the whole Mets organization in strikeouts. And then a couple of years after nursing an injury in the Mets system, ended up went to spring training with the Mariners, and then last year played AA and AAA with the Red Sox. So a lot of experience, and so without further ado, he's from Michigan. I'll let you take it away. Eric Neeson.
obviously, you know, it was a highlight video, so it's low lights in life, but a lot of that, I was never a guy that was extremely gifted genetically. Obviously, you're not talking to a pitcher that's 6'5" and always threw, you know, hard from a little tight to now. But how I got to that point was a lot of hard work and a lot of mechanics, and like what a lot of you guys are doing right now is learning. I went to all these camps growing up, the whole thing, but what I always had was a love for baseball. And the same thing with young kids now, like you guys are coaching, I don't know what ages you guys have, but what comes down to is whether or not they love it and what kind of work they'll put into it. So for me, being good at it or loving the game comes from being good at it sometimes. I failed more than I probably succeeded in this game, and I was able to do a lot of things. I've made it to AAA. I was in big league camp. I got to rub shoulders with Johan Santana, David Wright, all those guys that you saw from the, you know, those major superstars with the Mets, anywhere from 7 to 12. I was able to hang out with, conversate with, you know, actually kind of goof around the outfield, just because when those failures happened, I didn't get discouraged, but I wanted to get better, you know. So that being said, I have a lot. We went through some pointers here, and I'm just going to kind of go through, you know, just from the beginning. Setting up, you know, obviously with anything you need a good foundation. So we're going to start with the foundation. We're going to start with the wind up and stretch. Now, I'm just going to take my sweatshirt off here just so I can kind of make sure you guys see everything cleanly. All right, so first, the starting position. I mean, I've got a lot of kids that I teach back home, and just, you know, throughout the years that I've run into, they always want to, the people they see on TV is always who they want to emulate. So they got the guys, they always find the guys for some reason with the craziest starting positions ever. You know, even in that video, I'm on the right side of the rubber and I'm doing one of these and I'm rocking. That's advanced techniques. You're not going to learn that until you're probably, I didn't even come to that until I was my first couple years of pro ball. You start to really figure out your mechanics and who you are as a player. Well, it's fun for kids to try to do all, you know, you got the Japanese players that twist and fire. So I get a lot of those kids like, oh, why don't I do what he did, why don't I do? Well, you got to start with the foundation. So first, what I teach them is you have the rubber. If I could, I don't know, I'll try to use, you guys probably can't see it anyway, but you got the rubber, it's about this long. You want to start them in the middle of it. So when you're facing home plate, first thing you want to do is make sure their shoulders are squared on the windup. The very first thing you want to do. Now, you got kids that want to go wide, and you got kids that want to be real narrow. You always want to set them up so they're shoulder width apart. So when they are facing their catcher, you want to kind of split that home plate in half in the middle of the rubber, and you want to make sure their shoulders are square and that they're shoulder width apart. The reason for this is if you're too narrow, you're going to be off balance and you're kind of going to trip yourself. If you're too wide, you can get too squatty and you're going to end up coming down and you're going to be low on your knees and you're not going to use that height advantage. So you want to make sure you're just normal, relaxed. This is a nice relaxed state. Now, where your hands are, not really a big deal, especially because it all is going to depend on what your kid's kind of arm action is, and you're going to work on that anyway. But just for a rule of thumb, you just kind of want to make sure they're anywhere in this region, probably from shoulders to belly button. You don't want anybody way up here at a young age. You don't want them way down here at a young age. You know, just comfortable and relaxed. You know, relaxed shoulders. And then from there, that's just going to be your starting position. So this is just a nice, relaxed, ready to go. So that's where we're going to start from. Obviously, we got the starting motion to balance. I'll get into that, but I just want to show, you know, the stretch real quick. The only difference between the wind-up and the stretch is a couple steps. So if this is your wind-up, where you're going to start from, your stretch is literally pretty much going to be the same thing, but you're going to be turned. So when you come set, you're going to get your sign, and the same thing. So now your shoulders aren't square, but you want them square to almost first base. So now when you come set, same thing. Shoulder width apart, or shoulder width apart with your feet, hands in the middle. So if I turn like this, it's the same thing. Nice and comfortable. Because the thing with pitching is you can't pitch tight. It's not an aggressive sport to where you can get all hyped up and like grit your teeth and pitch. Because tight muscles, they do not throw the ball fast. You can't throw the ball when you're all locked up in here. You're just not going to be able to do it. You're going to lose control and you're going to lose velocity. So just all the kids need to be nice and relaxed, which usually younger kids really don't have a problem with. It's the high school level. They really want to throw that ball hard. They really want to show somebody up by blowing it by them. So that's probably the age you got to worry about a little more relaxing them. Younger kids are just kind of there to have fun sometimes. So, and that's in the stretch position. That's pretty simple there. A couple drills you can do. I always teach my kids to just kind of pretend they're in a tunnel. So, like I said, you want the shoulders square, you want nice and relaxed. You don't kind of want them thinking that they have to take up that whole rubber. So just for like, again, another rule of thumb is I just have them kind of visualize a tunnel that they're enclosed in from the width of the mound to the width of the plate. That's about it. I mean, there's not really many drills because it's a pretty simple thing. Again, another thing you want to do is just kind of like go up to them, have them get in their set position, whether it's here, whether it's the stretch, or whether it's the wind-up, and kind of just, you know, move their hands a little bit when they're here. If they're tight, you won't be able to move them. You'll be like, relax, relax. So just kind of, you know, dabble that glove up and down to where they can be like, all right, I got it. My shoulders are relaxed. And another technique you would want to do, another drill, is just a breathing drill. Make sure when they're breathing, try to just get them to breathe a little bit more of the stomach breathing. You would see the glove kind of come up, so, you know, just here, like, just take a nice breath in and out. It relaxes the shoulders, relaxes the muscles. And that's really the only drills you can probably do for those two things because there's not a lot of movement, it's just, again, foundation setting up. The starting motion to balance point. Now again, we'll start with the feet, again, from the ground up. Very simple. Hopefully everybody can see me here. Try to get enough of them. What you want to do, again, if we're going to start in the wind-up, and I'll just start there because the stretch is really just an abbreviated wind-up. So we're here, we're relaxed. Now the very first thing a kid wants to do is they want to do this big side step usually, or they want to do this big leg kick to try to get momentum. They want this big swing like a pendulum almost to throw. They think that's how you're going to throw hard. But really, all this does is mainly get you off balance. A little kid, even sometimes older kids, depending on like instruction or how much instruction they've had, they'll do this, and then when you do this, if you look at their eyes, they're now off center. Okay, whether it's this way in their right hander, they're like, well, the catcher's moving. Oh no, catcher's not moving, you're moving. Same thing if you go too far back, my head moves. You don't want your head to move off that mound. So that rubber right there, your head should always like keep your chin kind of like above it and right over it. So all you want to do when they're in that wind-up is just a small step back. Probably to maybe where your heel is max. So from, if you're lined up with your toes, take for me, my right foot to my heel, and that's it. You don't need this big swing. I mean, a lot of older, like you see, like I do it a little bit in that video. You see a lot of professionals do it because what happens is it does get them in a rhythm as the game's going, but they're so good at that point, they get back to the positions they need to be in. Younger kids, guys that don't have that ability, and you're usually not going to, like I said, I didn't have that until I was probably a year or two in the pro ball. You're just going to have to start with fundamentals, and then you can kind of get your own flair. Because if not, your mechanics are going to be off from the beginning, and you're just going to be all out of whack. So again, small step back, and then right from there, the next one, and the second step you're going to do is you're going to pivot like for me, it would be my left foot. For a right hander, it would be their right foot. This is very important. A lot of kids, they'll step. The instep right here, you want to make sure it's flush against the rubber. So for me, I'm parallel with the rubber right now. If I'm here, basically I'm telling them that I'm going to throw the ball that way. So when you step back and you get that foot open, you got to make sure that the instep is pointing towards your catcher. And then you're just going to rotate into a balance point. Now, we're talking about the hands a little bit before I get into the balance point.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So your starting position before you twist, step and twist, are your heels on the rubber?
What you want on the rubber is like you want to kind of be in a balanced position where it's in the middle of your foot. So you don't want to have just your toes touching the rubber, and you don't want to just be on your heels on the rubber. You want to have that rubber where the edge is, kind of where the mound starts to slope. You want your middle of your foot right on there, between the balls of your foot and the heel.
Of course, for us, that's an idealized situation.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I remember growing up, I played in Michigan, sometimes the mounds are like this and they're dug out. So it's going to be difficult. I mean, if I had a situation like that, what I would tell a kid is to just pitch from the stretch. Because if you're like this, because the mounds are so dug out, you're not going to get a proper way to be able to do the windup. Just throw from the stretch. There's really no difference no matter what people tell you. Well, I throw harder from the windup. If you're doing your mechanics right from your balance point, you're not going to throw any different. You're going to throw the same. So that's what I would recommend if kids complain that the mound's not good enough. Just tell them to go from the stretch the whole time. So from there, like I said, the hand shouldn't move at all in this situation. So I'm here, getting to my balance point, just stays there. If you get a lot of hand movement, it's going to take rhythm off, and when you get to that balance point, they're not going to be in a position to get into the correct throwing motion. The balance point I'll get into right now. A couple keys about the balance point. When you're in the balance point, you want to make sure, and a lot of guys do this, this foot needs to be relaxed. This front foot, your pickup leg. Again, I'm left-handed, so I know a lot of people are right-handed, so it's supposed to be opposite. But you want to make sure that's relaxed. A simple way to do that is just have them kick it. See, a lot of people like this. Again, tight muscles don't work. You're going to end up, if you have a tight muscle and you flex that calf, you're going to end up swinging open. And when you swing open, you're going to land open. Your weight's going to be forward, and now your arm's dragging behind, and now we have problems with injuries, velo drop, accuracy, all those issues. So again, one key, balance point, make sure that's nice and loose. Second, you actually want to make sure they're balanced. You know, it's a balance point for a reason. If you get a kid and he's here and he's falling backwards, not balanced. You get a kid here, he's falling forward or towards first base, not balanced. Here, and he's kind of trying to hold it, not balanced. So the first thing you want to be able to do is just, and this could be a drill, just call it a balance drill, is just when they get in that position, tell them to hold it. A certain amount of time, 10 seconds, whatever. I could probably stay here for a long time, balanced. But when they start getting confident they have the balance, start pushing on them a little bit. Chest, you know, push on their hips a little bit. If they can hold that, balance is pretty good. But if you can't get them to get to that balance point, the rest of the things you're going to do after that aren't going to matter. Again, it's the foundation. Let's see another point there.
I mean, another common problem I see with young kids at the balance point is because they're trying to overthrow,
Yeah.
they'll twist their leg behind.
So you're saying
them,
they look
they'll
like
twist
this a little
Yeah,
bit?
they look like that.
Yeah, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to preload. So they don't feel confident in their legs yet. Maybe they don't feel they're strong enough. They're trying to overthrow, and they think by coiling that they're going to be able to whip it around harder. But in actuality, what they're doing is they're just creating a side-to-side motion, and they're just, again, they're going to land open, their arm's going to drag behind, and now they're throwing all arm, which is defeating anything that they were thinking they were trying to do in the first place. That happens a lot to even guys at my level when they start getting tired. Their legs start to go, oh man, I don't feel good today. They'll start trying to just muscle up and just try to throw. It's natural, but it's not going to help you pitch. A way to kind of,
I'm sorry. And where's the knee in the balance point? Does it come above the hip, or is there a rule for where the knee should be?
how high the knee should be. I mean, you see a lot of guys, again, a lot of pro guys, you range from, a real small one to a big leg kick. When I'm in my stretch, I have a small one. The question is not how high your leg is, it's whether or not you get the weight on the back of your leg. That's what I was just going to talk about next. We want to get that weight on that back leg. Now, it doesn't matter how you do it. If you have a smaller leg kick, like that's all I need right there, because my hips are tilted. If you can see, kind of like, a lot of guys, they'll use an analogy like show your butt to the catcher. So like you really just like boom, boom. It's like your hips are here, it's like tilting. or if you're right-handed, the other way. Because now you're shifting that weight from your front side to your back side. That's why balance is so important, because if you're not balanced, then you go to shift that weight, you're going to fall back or you're going to fall forward. So what you want to make sure you do is when you get in this balanced position right here, your next move, which is we're going to get into is driving situation or separation here in a second, would be to shift that weight and drive out. But before you do that, you want to make sure that, again, the balance point is on point. So with the kids, another drill I like to do is this. Just kind of show you guys this way. Kind of one place there. You're going to come set, or in your wind up, get your balance point, and what you're going to do is you're going to just have them drop that leg up and down. Down, up, down, up. And you can tell I'm not wavering. My weight's not going backwards like this. My weight's not falling forward. And if they can do that, that means they're in good balance position. It's kind of like a litmus test in a way. So I would advise that's a good drill to use with kids. And then eventually when we get into the drive and separation, you're going to end up adding the hands with it. So that's very important. Trying to think if there's any more. You don't want any, a lot of guys, a lot of kids, a lot of people, they want a stiff back, so they'll kind of lean this way. Kind of the point that I try to get is to make sure that your chin is over your belly button a little bit. So like you just want to have that chin just over the belly button. Because if not, and it's kind of behind, you're going to fall back. If you're leaning too far forward over your toes, you're going to fall that way. So just kind of make sure their head is in the middle of their body, just over the belly button. All right, drive and separation. This is where a lot of things go wrong. A lot of movements start. The first thing, you're in your balance point. First thing a lot of kids want to do sometimes is separate the hands. I see a lot of this, especially younger kids. Just separate the hands and then they'll step and throw. Or they'll stay here and they'll start drifting and they won't separate their hands and now they're late. So it's like a well-oiled machine when you do it together. Everything's got to be in sync. Like I said, rhythm. A lot of guys do certain things for rhythm. I said the older guys, the pro guys. It's because they need all that timing mechanism to line up. So if they have this rhythm, just like rhythm in other sports, shooting, passing, there's rhythm in music. Like even learning your ABCs, most people go A, B, C. They have a rhythm to it and it helps them remember. So that's the same thing you want when you get the separation. So you get to your balance point, boom, you need a rhythm here, okay? See how my leg goes down and my hands separate? Same time. I've never actually put a string on I guess you call him a student, on a player. But you want to imagine that there's a string and tell your, whoever you're teaching, there's a string tied to your foot, to your glove hand. So when that comes up, your hand's up. That comes down, hands down. Just tied to each other. That way you kind of get that rhythm, and then you get the drive and separation, what we'll talk about a little bit. Drive and separation, hands together, just in that placement, even started from the foundation. Foot comes down. The moment the foot starts coming down, the hands with the ball should start separating. Okay? So I'll show you from this angle. Hand, foot up, separating. Okay, back up. Now remember that drill I said for balance with the foot? Now you're going to associate the hands a little bit. Foot up, hands together, foot down, separated. Up, down, up, down. Just knee and hand drill like that. Make sure they're in rhythm. And then you can get to the separation part. Now, when that hand comes down, that weight's going to shift, like I talked about that hips turning. You're going to drive with that weight on your back leg. You're going to drive outwards towards the plate. Now, the best way to gain velocity, accuracy, and to make the ball go where you want it is to make sure, just like a whip, everything's going out of your hand. So when you release the ball, everything wants to be, the power starts from your legs, comes up through your body, out on your fingertips. You don't want to lose any momentum or power that comes directly out of your fingertips. So what I mean by that is when you get into your drive and separation, if you land over here, like you're open, you're losing power out of your hips. If you drive closed, you're losing power in your ab because now you're cut off and you can't use your abdomen you have to spin open, you're not using gravity to pull down. So when you teach your kids the drive and separation, you want to make sure that they drive out, and when they drive out, their toes should be lined up. Not closed, not open, but lined up. A couple drills for that one's pretty easy. Get like the lines on the floor. If you don't have lines on the floor and you're in like a gym, you can use basketball lines, or if you have duct tape, put a strip of duct tape down, set them up on the rubber where their toes are just now touching the duct tape, and when they land, they should land right on that duct tape where their back leg started. So you're basically getting a straight line, and when they drive out, they should be in that same straight line. If they step on the duct tape, they're closed. If they have a gap between the duct tape and like whether it's a tile floor or turf, that means they're open. So you want to make sure as they drive and separate those hands, they land straight. Second part of that is when they land, you got to make sure the hands are still fully separated. So I'm going to get into that a little farther. That's a little bit for the hip and drill. Another drill for the driving. Let's see if I can do it here. But what you want to do is you kind of want to get them up against a fence or a wall. Try to use this best I can. And you bring them up into their balanced position. And you have them shift that hip to their weight right here. So obviously my hands are separated right now. Okay, so you want to make sure that's here and they don't have this going, because that timing mechanism still has to be lined up. So as you get them against, usually I like to use a fence that gives a little bit. You can usually find those in any type of facility or outside on a fence, even probably in your backyard here. And you just have them push. Push with that back leg into that fence for like 3 seconds, stop, balance point, boom, push, stop, balance point, separate, boom, just push. And they'll feel that weight on their back leg. That'll teach them what that feeling's supposed to feel like. Because if they're just like this, you'll be able to tell the difference too. All that power, they should be pushing right off that hip bone. So if all that power, you see them lean like this and their hips not even touching, you'll know that they're drifting, so they're off balance. Or if they're just kind of leaning on it, in that leg, there's no like push in that leg, that means they're not using their lower half. So you really want to make sure they're pushing there.
So this is the beginning of the weight transfer forward. So not the. This isn't the load. I'm confused.
That's the drive.
Okay, beginning of the drive. Okay.
Yeah, the drive and separation. That's the front hip and drive. So balance point, and that's the beginning of your drive. And then I was talking about the landing. But I wanted to make sure to show you guys a drill just for that hip to make sure that weight's back. Because that weight being back is a big deal to where how you land. Because if I have 50-50 and I'm just all of a sudden start floating, I have no weight on my back leg, so when I land again, that's all arm. Again, not what you want. So I just wanted to show a little drill. The stride I talked about, now I'll kind of touch more on the hands and the upper body. As you get here and you're driving and you land, this arm should be coming back. So what you should see in the pitcher's arm motion, again, which can get confusing if you're an infielder or a catcher, they teach a lot shorter arm, because when you field the ball, they want a short, quick arm to get rid of the ball quickly. So at a young age, that can be kind of confusing if they play multiple positions. But what you want as a pitcher is a nice long arm. You're in no hurry, especially if you're in the windup and no one's on base, you're in no hurry to get that ball out of your hand. You're trying to get the most accuracy and momentum and power you can out of it. So what we want, as we're separating and trying to land straight, this hand comes down with the ball right about your hip and just comes up into a circle. So it should look kind of like, if I'm doing it right like this. Boom. See that kind of like half circle there? And when you throw, you'll complete the circle. But as you're coming out and you're driving, that hand separates. What's very important, obviously we talked about the hip and landing straight. The same thing must happen with the shoulders. So if you land, it usually happens naturally if they're landing straight. The shoulders usually land pretty straight. But sometimes you'll see a little bit of like, they'll land straight and they'll kind of be like this. And again, trying to throw an arm or their upper body be this way. And you got to kind of line them up so they're parallel with each other. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about the hands and where the body should be positioned when we land. Notice there's a lot, so I'm trying to, let's see. Now, balance, stride out, land. Now when you land, this is what the pitching position should look like. We had that hand come down. Again, when that hand comes down, just so I mention it, when it comes out of that glove, you should come out like this, palms away. So as it comes out, it's away, and then when you bring it up, it'll be facing your ear. So like I'd like to tell the little kids as a drill, sometimes even the older ones, because it makes sense, it's just like you're feeding a giraffe, or like I call it feeding the giant. What you do is you come out here, and the hand should be in this position. Baseball should be away from you. Back of your hand facing your ear. Elbow, even with the shoulder, you should have this type of angle, or relatively close to that angle when you're in this position. Again, it's like you're feeding a giant. Little kids kind of like that one. So that is where your throwing arm should be. Now for this front side, we don't want it just like this, because you're going to use it as a lever, so this isn't going to help you. So what we do want out of that is that this comes down and the hands separate and we land straight, the hips are straight, and the shoulders are straight, the hands feeding the giant. We need the glove out, and we need, again, this at almost like a 90-degree angle with the elbow and the shoulder. Now the reason I want the glove facing out is because when you face like this, all that tends to happen is a rotation, okay? We don't want rotation. If you throw a little bit sidearm, there's a little bit of rotation to it, but you still don't want that glove in because you're gaining no leverage. You're losing a lot of leverage there. What you want is the glove out, and as the glove is out, we turn that glove as we're throwing and pull it into our armpit. So your arm motion, when you're still got the ball in your hand right now, you're about to throw, should look just about like this. Notice how when I'm feeding the giant here, and I'm in my balance or in my throwing motion, that all I'm doing is that hand stays the same. I'm just rotating my lower body, my hips, and my abs. This has not changed. Perfect throwing motion right there. See a lot of kids, all of a sudden they'll be like this. They'll hold the ball here, or here, or here. So if you got it like that and you turn, boom. Now we're throwing a curveball, thinking we're throwing a fastball. We're blowing up little kids' elbows. Here, perfect throwing motion on top of the ball. If it's here, boom. Now, again, an easy way to do that, I showed you the drive out drill, just have them finish it, land, and we get in this area. Now a drill for that, and for a little bit of torque, I like to take them step by step. So if we start from the beginning, from the wind up, step 1 is the step back, 2 the pivot, 3 the balance point, 4 throwing position, perfect throwing position. Now from that perfect throwing position, I do a couple drills, I like to call it kind of like a rocker drill. You get them here, just shift their weight forward, shift their weight back, and just have them throw right from there. Because what it's teaching them now is they're not trying to use that pendulum swing, that momentum to throw the ball. They actually have to use the proper mechanics. So forward, backwards, and you can have them do it a couple times. Forward, backwards, and when they're on their back leg and that weight's back, throw. Okay? And you'll be able to see, because it's slower, whether that hand is coming here and they're keeping it in that throwing position, or they're getting here and they're turning, or they're not using this as a leverage and pulling it in their armpit. You'll be able to see that a little bit better because, again, when they try to do it as fast as they can, it's hard to pick up. That's pretty much the hands and the upper body. With the torque there, this is an important part. To get torque, that front foot has to land closed. So if you guys can see me, it has to land closed, like that. If you land open, you lose your torque, because now your hips are open. Again, like I was talking about swinging open, even if you land open, so if you say you don't swing and you do drive it out, and then you open up that foot, again, now my hips are open, I've already lost a lot of power. It's going out that way, not coming out of my hand. So again, in that drill, you want to make sure that foot's closed, toes are lined up, just to kind of make sure they're doing that. That's going to get you the torque that you need, because now you're using your hips, they're closed, the power's still back. When you're here, hips are rotating, abs are rotating, front arms rotating, and it's all coming up through that body. Now I have it all stored, probably at this point, right in this area. All that power I was saving up on my back leg, when I'm here in that throwing position, is right here. It's all about to come out of my shoulder. Now from that point, we're here, okay? Now there's a couple points as we get to the release point of the ball. So if this is the perfect throwing position, number 5, you know, 1's the step, 2 is the pivot, 3 is the balance point, 4 is the stride in the throwing position, 5 is the release point. We're here, now we're not going to just throw like that. See, a lot of kids that just aren't. Use your body, use your core, use everything that you got. I'm 5'11", 6 foot, at one point anywhere from 177 pounds to 190 pounds. I can throw a baseball upwards of 95 miles an hour. Not because I'm 6'5", 220, 6'7", 250, but the only way I can do that is if I generate every little ounce of strength that I have, and it comes out of my arm. Like you watch CC Sabathia, if he does a lot of stabbing, the only reason he throws so hard is because he's so big. If his mechanics were cleaner, or if he was in better shape, he'd probably throw a lot harder. Because my size and his size, you know, mass times force equals acceleration. He's got a lot more mass than I have. So that means I'm getting a lot more force than he is, because I don't have the mass. So he's not using his body as much as I am. So we get to this point here, don't let him just do that. Make sure that lower back, you're reaching out, okay? A good drill, I'm sure you all heard of this one, is the towel drill for this, okay? Now what you want to make sure you do with the towel drill, you get them in that position where they rock back and forth. Hold out your hand, kind of get on a knee. Right, you might want to demonstrate it for me. Put the towel in their hand, kind of wrap it like a ball and twist it as close as you can get. And as they're throwing, you want them to reach out and hit the hand with their fingertips, or obviously with the towel, they're going to slap it. Now you're going to start closer so they get a feel for it. But as they start reaching out farther, you move back and back. But one thing I want to point on is hold that hand out again, okay? I can reach that right now because my lower back's bending down. I'm still keeping my chest up, but I'm bending down and stretching out. But if I'm here and I don't use my back, there's no way I can reach his hand. So you got to make sure that they really get through with their body. And the difference between that two is you're going to get more power on the ball, but more importantly than power at that point, accuracy and movement. You don't get any movement like this, but the farther that ball comes out and you stretch out, gets more off the fingertips, the more movement you can get on the ball and start manipulating things with your fingers. Also, you're closer to the plate. Instead of 57 feet, I'd be throwing from 55 feet. That's a big deal when you're trying to throw a ball past somebody. And then we got the finish. Again, let me just comment on that drill right there. Over-exaggerate it sometimes, because when you actually throw a baseball at a catcher, you want to make sure that they kind of have the feel for stretching out. So go as far as you can without them kind of cheating to where they can barely reach your hand with that towel. So like start close, they'll like, oh yeah, I feel that. Go a little farther, then they'll have to still reach, and just try to get them to reach as far as they can, you know, without them trying to like hop and then try to do it. Release point, arm slot. I'll kind of comment on arm slot a little bit after. Follow through. Follow through at this point. If everything's gone well so far that we talked about, which I know is a lot, but that's why baseball and pitching takes so long to finally figure out, which I still haven't figured it all out. You want to come through, if you get here, you're going to come through the right way. If all that momentum's going down that tunnel that I originally talked about, your foot here, there's nowhere for it to go. If all that power like a whip's coming out of your fingertips, automatically that foot should come through like that. The only reason you see kids kind of swing or kind of just throw it and not move at all, it's two reasons. One, they're leaking open, so they're swinging side to side, and all that power is not coming straight through the catcher. Or they haven't loaded that back leg enough, and they drifted, and all their weight's on their front foot, so now there's no explosion, they're just kind of weak with it. So those are two kind of like keys you can look for. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I would just say if you see, like, if you're coaching and you see your pitcher do one of these, like, he's not following through, he's not getting an extension, he's probably not using his back leg. If you see a kid like this, like swing side to side, he's getting his back leg back and he's getting that power, but he's probably landing open or he's landing closed. And since his hips are pinched, the only thing he can do to get free is just come sideways. So for the kid that's kind of doing that and like kind of going side to side, make sure you do the toe drill, make sure you do the extension drill. And for the kid that doesn't have the power and he's not getting that leg up and over because there's not much there, you want to do this drill right here. Make sure he feels that back power on his back leg. And again, when you stride out, make sure he's landing straight. I'll touch on arm slot here a little bit.
So on the towel drill, you want to work on keeping the front foot 90 degrees?
Yeah, I mean when you're here in that throwing position, you want that foot closed. But obviously that foot can't stay closed forever because you're going to break a leg trying to do that. But naturally, and this is just going to happen, with the extension you're going to rotate. That foot is going to automatically rotate. And I mean, it's not going to open, you can see my foot, it's not going to open like that, but it's going to be kind of like that. If closed is here, it'd be probably there. You're not going to be way over here. So that means, again, he's coming side to side. Or one thing a lot of people do, they land on their heel, okay? When you land, you want to land solid. You guys probably have your kids or your students or you guys played other sports where in basketball position, you want the balls at your feet and kind of guarding. Same thing when you're pitching. It's an athletic move where you're landing on the ball at your feet. If you land on your heel, you're going to spin. So make sure you land on the ball at your feet. Release point. I talked arm slot. Everybody's got different arm slots. I don't care. I throw from here. Some guys throw from here. Some guys throw from here. Kids, it doesn't matter as long as everyone has a natural slot. I always had this slot. Could never throw over the top. I can't throw 12-6. I throw a little more of a slur. Just always been my natural slot. You don't really want to change their natural slot, but you want to make sure if they're in that slot, there's some key points. When you're here and you come through, I said this is perfect motion. Now it doesn't matter if it's here when you throw, up here a little bit, even here. I wouldn't recommend a kid throwing from there at a young age because usually the only reason they do this for guys is left-handed specialists. They don't throw hard from up here and they need to get some funky movement. So usually they don't do this to guys until late in their career. Remember with Josh Ellis, they did that. So I wouldn't recommend it. Try to get their elbow above their shoulders because at those ages, not fully developed, and they'll probably blow something out because they won't throw it correctly. They'll throw all elbow, or they'll throw all shoulder, and then you're going to have a kid, you know, a lot of kids these days are having Tommy John at 14. So what you want to do is when you're here, again, elbows even with the shoulder, they're here, that's okay. But all I want to make sure is this hand is here to here. So you got the back of your hand, you're on top of the ball when you release it. So when I release the ball here, we're all in the same spot. If I come from here, same spot. Here, same spot. Guys that are down here even, same spot. That release point always has to look the same. Again, it's going to be hard to see with the naked eye, but if you guys have like coach's eye on your iPad, or you have somebody like, I can pick it up just because I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of guys throw. And if you can pick it up, great. Make sure there's slots here. Everything else is still the same. This is here as you pulled through. Chest is coming down, release point is the same, and they're on top of the ball when they release it. Whether it's from here or from here, on top of the ball when you release it. What gets in trouble is if they're a little sidearm like me, and they come here. They try to throw it from here, on top of the ball. That's the difference.
Awesome. Well, hey, so here's what we'll do. And again, we got to be sensitive of time ourselves. We've got a camps coming up this afternoon. But we can go a little bit over. Basically, what I think we'll do real quick, since we covered the mechanics and a walkthrough, I just want to open the floor for a few questions. And I know as we experience some coaches coming in and talking and kids, you know, you have certain kids with certain mechanics you just can't fix, or certain tendencies you guys see at that level. So I kind of want to open it up, just a quick Q&A mechanics-wise, and then we'll get on to some of the other discussion points. So if anyone has anything they want to ask about anything with mechanics, feel free.
I see a lot of boys aiming the ball. They're so concerned about throwing strikes, you know, they're shot putting the ball, they're aiming the ball, you know, to get them to get that full range of motion in their arm. Any suggestions on how to get that?
To get the aiming out of them?
Yeah.
We all have a tendency, I even have a tendency still in my career to aim. It's a fear. It's a fear, like a thing in your mind where it's telling you, I really need to make this perfect pitch or this guy's gonna crush it. That's really what it comes down to, because you think you have to, you see Greg Maddux, and he's the type of pitcher where you watch him like, boom, boom, man, that guy doesn't miss a spot. But you also watch a lot of guys like John Papelbon, for instance, he'll throw the ball right down the middle and guys won't hit it. So what you really want to make sure is that they're not, tell them, if you throw the ball with aggression and don't aim it, usually two things happen. When you aim, you get tight, okay? So when I was talking about kids tighten up to try to throw hard, sometimes they do it to try to aim the ball. They're not loose, and again, you can't control tight muscles as much because everything's stiff. Again, make sure they're relaxed. Again, the fear thing is a mental side of the game. We could get into that for probably another hour. But you just, I mean, from one, I would tell them the confidence, if you throw the ball with conviction, so if you believe in it, most likely you're going to get a good outcome. I'm telling you, you can throw a ball right down the middle and they'll still ground out, especially at the lower levels. Big leagues, yeah, they'll probably hit it. They'll probably hit a home run off you on a pretty good average, but they're still going to miss it and hit ground ball. And that's at the major league level. So the thing I would do mechanically for them is the breathing technique. Just make sure their shoulders are relaxed. Everything's loose. I like to tell them like loosey-goosey or loose like a noodle. Just through their whole motion, try to get them to like just be loose with that arm. Have them swing it a couple times, just like, hey, just sit here and swing your arm. Because what's happening when they aim the ball, they're timid and they're probably kind of coming together like this, and they're getting the elbow out, and they're not getting to that extension point, and they'll start missing. They'll just start spraying the ball everywhere, and even though they're trying to aim, they can't do it.
Okay,
Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
So one problem I notice is a lot of kids are throwing with very stiff wrists.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get, is there a way to get them to, I mean, other than just kind of the loosey-goosey?
Well,
thing?
do you have a ball on you by any chance? Okay.
And how much, basically, how much wrist do you want? Kind of
Well, I mean, it depends what you're doing. When I throw my breaking ball, I snap my wrist. I mean, again, teaching curveballs to kids, it all depends on the age.
No, just in
Just on a fastball?
Just on 4 or 2-seam fastball.
So you're saying when they come through, there's no snap on it?
There's no snap.
Well, what's happening probably, which would be my guess, I would have to see, but most likely, is if I have this ball and I hold it, let's say hold it like an egg, like hold it loosely like an egg. See how my wrist is loose even though I'm holding on to the ball? What kids do is they grab it and they really close in. They like grip it as hard as they can. Now look at my arm.
Yeah, like
Because my
they do that with
fingers,
their bats
yes.
too, so.
Because I'm gripping it so hard, all these muscles in my forearm are tightened up, and now I can't move my wrist. And that's what kids do, because they're just like, I'm gonna grip it and rip it. Grip it and rip it is what they're thinking. What you wanna do is you wanna just get the ball, get it in their hand, like, hey, I should be able to do this. I should be able to take the ball out of your hand, hold it lightly. And then by them holding it lightly, like, I have perfect control of this ball, but you can just, like that if you wanted. And now, when you do that, it's loose. If you're tight and I can't get the ball out of their hand, that means their wrist is locked. So just a little drill for them is like, hey, let me see the ball. If you can't get it out of their hand, that means they're gripping it too tight. And that's probably the reason why they can't get that snap on it. Because
Your thumb is straight under?
yeah,
With the-
I mean,
Or the opposite side?
I hold mine like that. If you put it off to the side, it's gonna be more of a sinker. This is more of like a true fastball. You start moving that up, you're gonna take one power away and control. So now like this is more like a changeup. Fastball, more like a changeup. So as you move it around, that's what's gonna happen. So like if you have a kid that's throwing like this and you can't control the ball, move it underneath.
I mean, another thing we tend to do is they'll get their fingers across the seam, but the fingertips are going to be on the smooth part, so they're not getting any of that.
The grip, yeah, I mean, like when I hold mine, mine's on the smooth part, but that's just preference. Again, like I said, if I was teaching young kids, I would teach them a two-seamer, moves a lot more. Teach them a four-seamer, try to get them used to throwing a straight ball, and then when they start getting better with their accuracy and getting their mechanics, start teaching them things that move, and then they can start to try to control those things.
What are your thoughts?
I was just going to say, with the grip and over gripping, one of the things I've found is the egg drill. You should be able to hold it hard enough where I'm not going to be able to just smack it out of your hand. If you have them actually hold an egg and throw, if they try and throw an egg, truly an egg, you can't grip it too hard.
Yeah.
You grip too hard, it explodes in your hand.
That's what I'm saying, like holding it like an egg.
Like an egg,
you
yeah.
can literally, because if they grip it too hard, like you're saying, it'll crush, and they'll have egg all on their hand. That is,
Yeah.
I've never done that personally, but that's a
It's
that
a
would
great
work.
drill. The only thing is if you have it top to bottom, it's really actually very hard to crush. So if
yeah,
you do it
put it
side to
sideways.
side, it's much easier to crush an egg from side to side. So if you do it side to side and have them throw it, they'll start seeing about, you start picking up a whole lot. And one of the things he said a bunch is this idea of a whip. It's all about fluidity, and the more that you break it up, and if you have a whip that's got a stiff part in it, you don't get nearly as much fluidity and acceleration, velocity, all that stuff out of it. So if you have them try and throw an egg sideways, you'll be able to find out if there's anything stiff in there, because if it's smooth, it'll come out, they'll be able to throw it.
And that's a good point, because he's talking about that whip. You could do everything perfect in your whole mechanics, and then if you're gripping that ball too tight, you've just wasted all those good mechanics because of that last little problem. And that's why pitching is so complicated. You got a question?
Yeah, I know we talked about the head a little bit, but in terms of like picking up the target and kind of focusing on the target, what are your thoughts on that? Now, kids kind of look down at their hands a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of all over the
Like I
place.
said, like a lot of guys use a mechanism to kind of start over. They'll start with their heads down, and then when they're ready, they'll look up. But once you look up and you catch that catcher's glove, obviously catchers at the higher level, they set up later, but like that's not really going to be a problem because you're still throwing to a spot you want to throw to. You focus on where you want to throw. You make sure that head stays still. So if I went through the whole wind up here, I mean, you didn't see my head move almost at all. And that's the key. Your body's moving, but your head's not moving, because with the head goes the body. And that's why I try to tell my kids all the time, like, if you move like this, there goes the head, the body follows. You move like this, there goes the head. You go like this, there goes the head, and the body follows. It's almost here the whole time. And then the only time it comes forward when you release, and then when you get rid of it, you start moving through. But that head should stay still, and the eye should stay on the target the whole time.
Yeah, what else?
When you introduce changeup, or obviously curve, we're talking much later now, but when you introduce a changeup to
Immediately? Yeah. The changeup, all it is a grip difference. You have a fastball, and then you just move it over on your hand to your left, like pointer finger and middle finger, power. Thumb, power. Ring finger and pinky, no power. It's not where your power comes from. So the more you move it over, the harder it's going to be to control. Arm speed stays the same, but since there's no power in those fingers, the velocity is less. So it looks like a fastball because your arm speed sells it, but it's off those fingers, so you're not getting the velocity on it. And there's not going to be any hurt to your elbow. You're not snapping it. You're not getting here and snapping a curveball off. So you could teach a kid a changeup as soon as they start throwing a fastball if they can handle it. I mean, obviously you want to start small, see if they can handle a fastball, and be like, hey, let's start doing a changeup. And just throw that changeup, throw a couple fastballs, and hey, throw the changeup. Same speed. Just honestly, if you want to teach them a fastball and be like, fastball number 2, and move it over. That way they don't think changeup, they think fastball with a different grip, and it'll be slower. Because sometimes it's like, oh, I gotta throw a changeup that's slower, and they'll slow their arm speed down, thinking they gotta throw it slower. No, you want the same arm speed, you just want to move it over in the hand.
And the other suggestion that I've always heard, because I pitched in college and I had a fastball and a curveball. I never learned my changeup. I wish I had. But I learned my curveball because I would just, whenever I was playing around, I'd throw it all the time. And I learned it at 8 years old. I mean, it was kind of, I don't suggest that, but I wish I had learned how to throw a changeup. And throughout college, I tried to throw a changeup, and I just never could learn it. If you start them early and just say, grip it differently when you're playing catch, just try different grips. Part of pitching, and the reason why you get pitchers is because they can hit something. I mean, it's a lot of this, you kind of sometimes you get kids that overthink a lot. You have people who are going to be great pitchers, they can hit a spot. You say hit that, and if they don't think, they'll hit it. But once they start thinking, they can't. And so we're trying to get them to have these mechanics so they don't have to think as much and work through it, that they can just
You just got to get them to trust the mechanics, and they'll stop forgetting about the mechanics, and they'll just be like, I know how to do this. All right, throw the ball there. But the mechanics are sound, but they don't think about the mechanics anywhere because they trust them. And a good point that I learned from a guy, it's you see what they're doing wrong, have them throw a couple, correct it, have them throw a couple the corrected way, then tell them to go back their old way. So when they go back to that old way, they feel the difference. And it works every time. And it worked on me when I was in pro ball, and it works on the kids from any ages. When they throw it the right way, they're like, oh yeah, that feels better, but it's still in their mind, they don't trust it. They're like, yeah, this guy's telling me, he probably knows what he's talking about, but whatever, So, but when they go back, you're like, all right, go back to your old way. They start throwing it, they're like, oh man, that doesn't feel as good. And now they're like, okay, that way works better, I'm gonna stick with it. That trust is a big difference, because now they're not thinking about the mechanics, they're thinking about how much better they can do now. And they trust that they can do better because of what they just learned. They believe in it now. And that's probably a big thing in coaching, because you have to prove to them that their old way wasn't the good way, or wasn't better for them.
So that's kind of, and so we'll move along from that. And again, some of you that worked with us, and you'll hear me say over and over that if you can feel a difference, and if you can make a kid feel a difference, whether it's by visual, whether it's by feel, you can get a kid to feel a difference, that's when we can make changes. So that's anything we can do to make them feel that difference.
Sorry to interrupt, but the greats like Tom Glavine and Pedro Martinez, that can throw a bullpen with their eyes closed, all by feel. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it. Just practice and feel. That's how good they are. So.
Well, let's do this. So this next section, and you can have a seat, man, if you want. So we got about 15, like I said. We'll go a little bit longer if that's all right with everybody. But just in the, we'll think about time as we kind of move along. So we have some discussion tape. Yeah, so a few discussion questions we have out there. So basically with Neeson and like saying with Pedro and those guys, it's about repetition and doing it over and over, but it's also about the back end stuff that nobody thinks about preparing your body, how to prep for a game, how to take care of your arm after. And if I didn't mention it, so Eric was in Florida yesterday. He got a call from the Orioles, so hopefully he'll be with us hopefully this coming year. So he had a workout yesterday with the Orioles scout and through. So he's currently in the process. His first thing he said on the phone is, we got to find a gym. Got to get me in a gym because he's got to get his body back for the next call that comes. So I think it's really important at a youth level to make sure we hit on what exactly we can do, you guys can do as coaches with your kids to get them prepped and also to get them going. So we'll just kind of step along these questions. I think with this, we'll keep it informal. So again, feel free to plug in. So let's talk a little bit about pitch counts, maybe preseason, middle, and after. and just kind of get an idea of what you do and your progression with it, and then suggestions for youth.
You know, with my progression, I, obviously as a grown man and an athlete who's been doing it for a while, in the beginning, you got to start small. There's always got to be a rest period. Like, I'll just start from spring training to spring training. From spring training, we start small. You start playing catch from 60 feet, maybe 50 throws a day. Then you go to 90, and a couple, like, take a day off, then go to 90. Take another day off, go back to 60. Then the next day, you go to 90. And then as the month goes on, you start moving back. 60 feet, 90 feet, 120, 150, 180, 200. You get about to 200, you start throwing bullpens, 20 pitches, all fastballs and changeups. 25 pitch, next one, 25 pitches, fastballs and changeups. Third one, 30 pitches, throw a couple breaking balls. Next, keep doing it, 30, 35 pitches, and if you're going to be a starter, you throw a couple more, 40, 45, and then you go to spring training. Go to spring training, then they'll do the same thing. We'll start over. Then you start throwing them games, game count, throwing innings, maybe 2, rest, couple, 5 days, go back out, throw 2, 3 innings, rest. That's how spring training is. That's why it takes 6 weeks, 7 weeks to get guys through spring training. It's all because of the pitchers usually. Then as the season goes, we always had a pitch count, 5 innings, 100 pitches. As the season went, middle of the season, you can start expanding. I mean, as a rule of thumb, they never want guys to go over 100 pitches. They start getting around 90, 100 pitches, they yank them nowadays. But, like, you see it with young guys in the big leagues still. Like, what's his name from the Nationals? Strasburg. They have hit him on pitch count and stuff because it's just, it becomes a long season. Baseball is not a sprint, it's a marathon because you're playing from February to October if you're playing in the World Series. It's ridiculous. So the middle, that's where you're freshest, but you're still probably at 100 pitch count. Towards the end of the season, they start cutting your innings again, and then the off season, you take a little bit of time off, a month, whatever, and then you start back over from 60 feet, start back over. That's kind of like the professional and college level. With kids, you kind of just gotta listen to kids, because when you're a kid, when I was a kid, I could throw all day, every day. I made some stupid mistakes. I remember in high school, I threw 7 innings for a district game, and then I closed 4 hours later and threw another 3 innings, which should never happen. But you feel like you could throw because, one, your muscles aren't built up, you're not a grown man yet, so you feel loose all the time. But your tendons aren't fully developed either. Your tendons are still going to take the stress. So what you want to do for kids is you still want to start with a progression. Say it's January and your season's like for us, the season's in April. Just start small. Get them outside, throw 60 feet, take a day off. Kind of like what I was talking about. When it comes to the bullpen, same idea, 20 pitches, 25. Now, depending on the age of the kid, I mean, if it's a high school kid, he could probably throw 80 to 90 pitches in a game when he's middle of the season. But if the rule of thumb, 100 pitches for like high school level guys, especially elite high school guys, junior, senior age, 100 pitches, still shouldn't go above that. Pro guys aren't going above 100 pitches. I don't think high school kids should be throwing 140 pitches in a game. When it comes to like little league and stuff, I mean, 50, 60 would be like my range for like teams, especially if they're not getting 5 days of rest. If they're gonna throw 50 pitches and then throw again 2 days later, they need to throw less. They need to throw 30 and then a day off and then try it again. But if they're throwing 60 pitches, they probably need those at least 4 days of rest in between each start. Let's see. Any questions on pitch count for that?
So you got a pitcher that you're resting for 4 or 5 days. Are they still doing soft toss?
Oh yeah, they're playing catch every day.
Okay.
But just the strain of being on the mound.
Just not a full speed
Yeah,
pitch.
yeah. I mean, again, those are the days we talked about the changeup. Those are the days every day. You play catch every day. Like in pro ball, you play catch. Now they come up to you and they say, "Man, I'm out. Like, coach, my arm's hurting." Give them a day. Now, if they say they're sore, great. If they say like they have a pain in their elbow or a joint, then you probably got issues. But if they're like, my muscles are sore.
And you can still do the mechanics drills without
Yeah.
throwing
Oh yeah.
balls.
I mean, that stuff like with the towel drill and stuff, that's very low. Like, I can't think of the word for it, but I mean, it's not going to stress your body a lot. Low impact. It's very low impact. So you got to take those days off and just kind of, especially at that level, they need a lot of drills anyway because they need the foundation.
So what's great about this age, I think, too, and what we really try to preach is have it, you know, baseball in general, there's a lot of games, there's a lot of career. So just trying to be cognizant as a youth coach of not playing just for the moment. You got your championship games and those are important, but we see it year after year, day after day, and how many kids are ruined or sick of the game by the time they get to the point where it really counts. And those could be the kids that have the best makeup, have the best chance to go on and fulfill their dream of playing future. So again, with Eric and our conversation, I mean, it's down to a science. What he eats, what he goes in his body during season, how he conducts himself. You know, throwing a pen one day, and Brett, I'm not touching a baseball for any demos, you know. So it's down to a science. So I guess moving on, and you kind of touched on warm-up and progression. I don't know if you want to add anything to that about pregame, or if you want to quickly explain, you know, pregame for a start, pregame for a bullpen, and maybe for a Little League day, how they can best prepare their arms so they're not going in cold.
Again, anytime you're going to get ready, I'd probably say it's the same, Little League all the way up. You're going to stretch, you're going to run, get the blood flow going. You're going to play catch close, and you're going to expand out. Then they'll bring a catcher out, still throw in a catch a little bit. Then you get on the mound, throw your warm-ups off the mound, and then you go into the game. I mean, that's the progression it takes. That's going to be from the Little League level, because you just can't pick up a baseball, go on the mound, and start a game. You know, it's just, you can't do it. One, you're not going to build strength that way, and two, you're going to get people hurt. So all you do is, again, start small, work your way up. That's probably the best way. Each person's body's somewhat different, especially kids. You know, I know kids are sometimes hard to deal with because they'll be sore, they'll think something's worse than it might be. But start small, listen to them, and then work your way up.
So that's easy to do at the, 10, 11-year-old with your starting pitcher. But you've got another guy coming in 2 innings later that's playing in the outfield at first base or something like that.
Yeah, again, like what I would suggest, especially for that, is like don't bring them in cold from the outfield. They do play catch with the outfielders a lot. They play catch, but just, I know it's hard in Little League because you probably want to bring them right in, but a suggestion would be like take them off the side, let them play catch off the side. Like say you're in there, that it's your turn at bat, and you think he's going to go in the next inning, be like, hey, grab someone on the bench or grab a catcher and go play catch. You might go in the next inning. Get them warm that way. Get the catcher down. You can even do a flat ground a little bit and have them get kind of ready to go in the game. And then if you do start the inning with the old pitcher and he's out in the outfield, at least he's had a warm up. You can bring him in and he's not cold.
Another thing you can do with that is usually you go out there, you talk to the guy before you pull him out off the mound. Usually when you're walking out there, you're going to be doing it. Before you go out, grab someone and say, go out and throw with this kid. Just go out and start throwing. You go out, you just talk to him for a second, tell him, give him a little feedback on what the day was, and that gives him just that little bit of throwing, just to warm up the arm.
I mean, you're going to get better results that way too. Because a kid coming in cold is not going to have the velocity and he's not going to have the accuracy. So if you're trying to win a game, giving him time to warm up is going to help you in the long run anyway.
I have a question concerning talking about warm and cold. How warm does it need to be outside? I mean, finding a place to be throwing in Baltimore is not easy.
No, I totally agree with you, and I grew up in Michigan, so I know exactly the problem.
Yeah.
You know how it is, when you're moving around, it's a lot warmer than if you're just standing there. So obviously on cold days, you're just going to have to throw more to get warm. And it's tough. I mean, even in college days, you remember we had some really cold days, you just kind of got to do a little bit more that day. It might affect you the week later, where you might have to take some more time off, but to get warm, you're just going to have to take your time and try to do it, because you can't win. You have to play baseball outside, and it's a northern state, you're going to be cold. I remember pitching when it was snowing outside. Those are the days, instead of throwing 20 pitches in the bullpen, maybe I had to throw 30 to get warm. That's the only suggestion.
And maybe send it for a run just to get the whole body.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Obviously the stretching and stuff,
yeah.
Everything becomes a little bit longer because it takes a little bit warmer, or a little bit more to get warm. I mean, nowadays it's a lot better too because they have all that heat gear, Under Armour and stuff. Like, it's gotten better because of that stuff. I mean, but
And
that's
would
the
you-
only thing you can do, really.
Would you suggest that they do some pitching with, jackets on? I mean, is that something, or just with the
I would suggest long sleeves,
Mhm.
like the Under Armour tight gear, because
Mhm.
you can't really throw. You're gonna mess up your mechanics with a jacket.
Okay.
But the minute they're done throwing, keep them warm. Put jackets on them.
Yeah.
Put towels around their neck, wrap their elbows. If you have heat pads, like obviously the professional level, college level, they have heat pads to keep us warm, to warm up your joints and stuff. But for kids, you're not going to obviously have that. Put your winter jacket over them. Keep them warm. Once they're warm, keep them warm.
Okay. Unless they're done at the end.
Unless they're done, and then still, you don't just like put them out in the elements. Put their jacket on, let them slowly cool off.
Throw them in an ice bucket.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead, take your shirt off and enjoy the cold weather now. Yeah.
Real quick, let's touch on after. So a kid throws or you throw, and let's just go over ice, arm strengthening, and then also let's dispel any myths about flushing and that kind of stuff.
Okay, after the icing for me, I never did it. There's no real, I mean, a lot of people say, well, the swelling, the small and tissues and stuff. I never did it. There's nothing wrong with doing it. A lot of guys do it. A lot of guys, sometimes it's mental or it's like a superstition. I never did it. It's more arm care now, where like you get bands, and after you come out of a game, you work your, like you're working your traps and your, I think of the name. But,
inflection,
lats.
your
all
lats
flexion,
and yeah, all that stuff like internal, external rotation. That's the stuff they're doing now as you come out of a game. It's not like, hey, put an ice pack on and sit there. It's internal, external. Get 2.5 pound weights, scapula loading and stuff like that. Those are the exercises that you need to learn. And then once they're done with that, then they can ice if they want to. They don't have to. It's not going to make or break their career. It's not going to kill them either way. But if they want the ice, give it to them. Touching on flushing. A lot of coaches, especially the old school guys that I used to have, you threw the next day, you were sore, you ran for an hour. Long distance running. Now, there's honestly no science behind that helps. All you're going to do, they say, oh, we're going to flush the lactic acid out. But in truth, all you're doing is building up more in other parts of the body. So now you're just not sore in your arm, your hamstrings are sore, your back's sore, your calves are sore, your ankles are hurting you, your knees are getting worn out. It's a thing of the past now with all the lifting and all the strength training that we have. What you do want to do with a kid is get them outside the next day, do some sprints, do a workout, but do not baseball pitching. It's not a long distance thing. You get a ball, you're explosive for 3 seconds, and then you got a 10-second rest and you're explosive again. So a lot of the training should be sprint, quick sprints, explosiveness, walk back. Like let's say 30 yards. Sprint 30 yards, 60 yards, walk back, boom, go again. Come back, boom, go again. It's explosive. You're not continually pitching. You're not like, and then keep going. No, it's ball, boom, get the ball back, 10 seconds, boom. Now, as a training exercise, if you send them out to run once in a while, long distance to kind of make sure that they're just in shape in general, that's fine because a lot of oxygen and a lot of anaerobics or aerobic exercises for heart conditions and stuff's good. But for flush, it's not going to make your arm feel better. It's not going to fix it. The only thing that does that is rest. Plain and simple.
And then can we give just a quick demo, internal, external, maybe topical, internal, external?
Yeah, I mean,
show if you see
I don't. You guys have probably seen the bands. If not, I don't have any with me.
Yeah, I didn't bring me down. So
But like, if this is a weight, or like pretend this is a band, the internal, external, just kind of like squeeze the scapes together, put something underneath this elbow, and just in and out, stiff arm, and you really feel it here. Other way, inwards. Up here, kind of remember, how this was a throwing motion, same thing with the bands, up here, and you'll feel it back there.
When he says squeeze the scabs, you can tell kids like you're squeezing a penny between your shoulders.
Yeah, like the shoulder blades, yeah. Then you can take, even at like my age, I still only use like 2.5 to 5 pound weights max, and the same thing just with the weights up here, down, squeezing those scapulas out front. And that's what they're doing with the arm care now. They're not just, hey, you're done, go ice. you know, whatever, sit there and watch TV. You got to get out of the game. You got to do your shoulder care. Sometimes they'll bike, and then that's it.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, I think about 5 minutes we're good for. If anyone has any other questions or thoughts, with the opportunity to Eric here, and then you know, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So I'll open the floor one more time. If anybody has any other thoughts or questions, anything popping up.
About like mental preparation. I mean, baseball is a very mental game.
Oh, yeah.
Pitching's the worst.
It's a chess game.
I mean, my kid pitches, he's a lefty, and he's only like 9. He's pretty good, but I'm always concerned about the mental aspect because you can get off the game pretty easy, and then he's got to come in and he's got to bat.
Yep.
So you got to keep your head clear. And it's always tricky to figure out how to work that and what to tell them.
Well, is there a specific example that you can kind of?
You know, like if he's doing pretty well, he's got a couple strikeouts, a tight game, and then, you know, they hit a ground ball, goes through somebody's legs, he gets on base, and he'll get mad.
Yeah,
You know? And it's natural, you know, like you should have caught that. Like,
But
real
here's
well,
the only thing I could suggest for that is, one, it's a team sport. As much as you think you're in control on the mound, and we all get like that at times, the point of the game is to throw it where you can. I can make the perfect pitch with the nastiest break and the best stuff I got, and the guy could launch it over the foul pole or like over the fence. That's part of the game. That's going to happen. The problem with, it sounds like your son, and I'm the same way, pitchers tend to be perfectionists. We do, and you can't be. So when you can't achieve that perfection, you get frustrated. Because even if I execute the perfect pitch, that should get a guy out. One, the umpire might miss it. Two, the guy could still hit it and squeeze it. Could hit a rock. I've seen balls hit rocks, go over guys' heads, and it's a triple. And I'm like, what the? Like, this is professional level baseball on fields and stuff like that happens. There's just no, you can't control everything. Control what you can, pitch by pitch, and now move on from that. That's over with, and just focus with what's in front of you. Because the thing that you tell him is damage control, because if he's angry about giving up one hit between a guy's legs, he'll be really angry if he really lets it get to him and he lets 3 runs in because he walked guys or starts serving it down the plate. So just kind of teach damage control and then you kind of even out.
I mean,
But
usually beforehand, I mean, what I've done is like scare tactic. I mean, I'll be blunt with it. I'll say, look, and I tell all the pitchers, say, you know, you're going to strike guys out. You're going to walk them. You're going to hit guys. You might have guys hit home runs off. That's the game. And just to try to let them know that all this stuff can happen and it's fine.
But just let them know majority of the time the odds are in their favor.
Right.
Like, those things are going to happen. Like, they're going to happen. You can't control them. Move on. And then if you make the same pitch again, most likely you're going to get a double play. So tell them their job is to throw the ball where they want. No one else, just pretend no one else is on the field. If they start focusing on the task of, make it a game to where, how many times can you hit the glove? If you hit the glove, you did your job. If you throw that fastball and you hit the glove, you did your job. That's what you should be counting on. You can't count what goes on, you can't count what the hitter does, you can't count what the umpire does, but if you did your job, you should be happy. Now, on the other side of that, if you miss your spot, throw the ball down the middle, and the guy swings and misses for strike 3, and you're all pumped up, you didn't do your job. You threw the ball right down the middle, and most guys are going to crush it. You missed your spot, but you're not mad about it. Why is that? You didn't do your job. So you kind of just start changing their mind and their thought process on what a pitcher is really supposed to do.
So, and one really good resource, if you haven't heard from it, we base a lot of what we do on this book series. It's the Mental ABCs of Baseball, and you get up to this level, I mean, it's by far, bar none, the best you can get. Taking a chapter with you, you know, refreshing before a week of practice for reading a chapter and having it on the mind. By far the best for youth athletes, all the way up to the top. So the ABCs of Baseball, there's a whole series for pitching, hitting.
Baseball's a slow game, so there's a lot of time to think. It's not like basketball or hockey where you just got to be going. You have too much time to think, so you got to be able to control that.
Maybe another.
Real quick question. What's your advice for young kids protecting themselves on the mound? You know, heart guards or the major league thing that they're discussing now with head protection and so on.
How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
I think it's good. I mean, you never
Have you
should.
ever worn a heart guard or anything?
I never had that stuff. I mean, I came up before that was even talked about. The closest thing that we had, and I was already past that, was the softballs they were trying to pass, like the softer baseballs or whatever. Yeah, something like that. I even missed that. Like, but for me as a kid, like no kid should be able. Baseball's supposed to be fun. They shouldn't be worried about dying out there. I mean, so if that stuff works, great, because I was 12 years old and they had those big barrel -10 bats they used to have, and I watched a ball go off a kid's forehead at 12 years old and had to bring an ambulance out. Like, you shouldn't be worried that you're going to die out there. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think it ruins the game. Once you become a grown man and you're 18 years old, if you don't want those things anymore, that's your choice. You're putting your own self at risk. So.
Well, and we had about 10 years ago, we had a kid down in Baltimore, 7-year-old.
See, like, that should not, that can't happen. I mean, kids, it's a game to have fun. You don't want to see any tragedies like that. So, like, I'm all for it. I mean, life's more important than baseball.
Well, anybody else with that? Cool. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So just a few things before we totally close it down. I just want to introduce our staff over here with Impact with the camps today. So on the left here, this is Coach Dave. Coach Dave Mealy played on scholarship in college in Pennsylvania. Played D2 college baseball on scholarship. So he's a hitting and defensive coach. Does a great job working with kids. And Chris Hines on the right. Chris Hines, he's a senior at Hopkins, played baseball and got recruited over Hopkins from San Diego. He's also a hitting and defensive coach. Our other coach, Andrew, Coach Andrew, he's also at Hopkins. He got recruited there from Georgetown Prep down south in Bethesda, and knows this stuff. He's actually out of town this weekend, or he would be here. So it worked out great having Eric in town. But all this stuff, lives and breathes it. He's from the new age and he does a great job with kids. So he's around year round, and hopefully Eric will be around year round if he gets a call back after throwing yesterday. So on top of that, like I mentioned too, so Eric's going to be here today and tomorrow. I know some of you guys might have kids in our youth camps. We have one today at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I know there are a few openings in that one. And then there's an elite level camp for travel players tomorrow. That's from 12 to 2. And I'm pretty sure we have 2 or 3 slots open. So with Eric, he'll be there. He's going to be working hands-on with kids in groups. So if there's any interest in any of your teams or something, you can feel free to shoot us an email and we can find a way to slide them in. And other than that, we're around year-round. We operate and we're based right up here at Friends. For right now, we're in the cages, and hopefully we can find something soon for the season on. So that's that. Feel free to take that. Again, those coupons, we have more of those. If you guys would like more, if you have teammates, if parents would like them, feel free to shoot us an email. We can email them over to you guys without a problem. So with that, Eric, we appreciate you coming out. Thanks a lot, man. I know you guys want a long day. And look forward to seeing you guys in the near future.